nobody asked for this, but let's jump into the history of the US Post Office. We're gonna go all the way back to the 1600s in the colonies, and let's talk about letters. So letters were obviously super important. Didn't have all our little gadgets yet, but also we didn't have stamps, so nothing was prepaid. Like, the recipient of the letter had to pay for the letter, which wasn't super efficient and took the mail carrier forever. But I mean, what a revenge thing. If you were mad at someone, you could just send them a zillion individual letters, and they're paying for every letter, and every letter is like, and another thing. I love that. Also, in old school days, ship captains would come in from Britain with a bunch of letters and put an ad in the paper with everybody's name that had unpaid mail, which kind of seems like a pretty uninteresting gossip column, but I mean, who knows? You know, not a lot else going on. So then in the early days of the colonies, there were a few informal mail routes, like between Boston and New York, and then in 1692, King William was like, I give you permission to do the mail. Also, it's gonna be taxed, it's gonna be great, you're gonna love it. And America was like, we hate it. So it all fell apart 1 year later, and the colonies were like, we don't trust your sketchy crown post, we're gonna do our own thing, Dad. And Ben Franklin and William Goddard were like, we got this, and started running this kind of alternative mail, and they made routes between like Boston and New York and Philadelphia and made it so much more efficient, and this became the US Postal Service. And then in 1775, we were like, Constitution and flag and revolution and tea, and Hamilton was like, Hamilton. And Ben Franklin was appointed the first ever Postmaster General. And then this was like the official beginning of the post office. Also, Postmaster General was a big deal, like it was included in the president's cabinet. Ooh. So America began to grow, and then as it grew, more and more post offices came along, which is super helpful when we're like, when did this place become a place? And then we see we got mail, and we're like, it's a place. So then in 1840, the UK was like, this is a postage stamp, and started using them, and everyone in the US and the world was like, what? Paying for mail before you send it? Groundbreaking. And then Daniel Webster, who was a senator, was like, we gotta do this postage stamp thing, it's gonna be big, and nothing happened. And then a private company started in New York City called the City Dispatch Post, and they were like, all right, two things. First, we're doing stamps, they've got George Washington. Second, we're gonna put mail collection boxes all around the city, so instead of trotting your horse all the way over to the thing, you just put it in the box. It's crazy, it's great. And then a few months later, the City Dispatch Post was sold to the US government. So then in 1847, Congress was like, all right, we're doing this stamp thing, we're doing it, and standardized mail rates. So then they added a zillion more post offices and kinds of stamps and put mail on trains and steamboats and authorized the death penalty for mail robbery. What? And then they were like, wait, no, that's a lot, let's do 5 years of prison. And then the post office combined with the Pony Express, which was like mail by horse, and then they made up postcards and zip codes, and then they made longer zip codes because we love it, we gotta have more zip code, and priority mail and forever stamps, and now we're here. So that's the history of the US Postal Service.